Fitzpatrick takes the snap, drops back, lobs it back right corner. Decker! He's got it! Touchdown! Eric Decker scores! And the Jets have won it in overtime!
This is the Jet Take with Ben Blessington and Kyle Fahey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jet Take. I'm your host for tonight, Kyle Fahey, and special guest, Greg Armstrong, TOJ buddy, TOJ Street Fighter, I guess. Loves to get dirty on the Twitter streets. Greg, how you doing?
I'm doing good tonight, Fahey. I'm feeling a little under the weather, but like I told you, I'm a warrior. I'm here to do this.
Listen, I would just like to apologize. Well, actually, we're not going to apologize because we got a good interview for you guys set up, so you're welcome ahead of the time. Not to be a little cocky, but we're both a little under the weather, both Greg and I. So if you hear some sniffling, don't criticize. Just leave a 4-star review instead of a 5-star review this time. You know, we'll take anything above a 3-star, basically.
No, five stars only.
All right,
tell us to not get sick.
Yeah. You know what? We need a better immune system. That's what we need, Greg. Obviously, no Ben Blessington here tonight. He is taking care of his child, so, you know, he couldn't find a babysitter for tonight. No, in reality, he is moving into a very nice college that I probably can't get into in Syracuse, so we wish Ben all the best of luck, and hopefully he's got his pepper spray on him, you know, because he's definitely going to be a target out there in those nasty Syracuse streets. Nonetheless, speaking of Syracuse, I'm going to ride this segue like a mall cop. We got Boy Green, possibly the mayor of Syracuse. I don't know if we'll declare him the mayor of Syracuse. Boy Green, radio host galore, Paul Esden. Paul, how you doing? That was an intro. I don't think we got it, though. Paul, how you doing? We'll try it again.
No, I'm doing fantastic. Sorry, there was a weird delay after the mute came in. But, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was a little last minute. I mean, that's kind of how we do it here at the Jet Take. Everything's last minute, scrapped together. But you guys love it. So, Paul, thank you for coming on. Like we said, I'm sorry about Greg in advance. He's a bit of a rookie on the podcasting thing. Do you think the mayor of Syracuse is a fair title for you? I guess we'll open up with that question.
Well, I feel like that's a better pay than I'm currently getting, so I'm all for it.
You're saying radio hosts don't make a lot of money?
Yeah, I know. Shocker to everyone listening.
Wow.
Minimum wage, believe it or not. So there you go.
Wow. I feel like that's a crime. Whew. Greg, any thoughts on that?
Give my boss's number. You can give him a ring if you'd like.
Okay, we will. You have my boss's phone number, so, I mean, we can complain for each other if you'd like, obviously. Joe Caporoso will cut me in a heartbeat, but...
You're not making the 53, Kyle.
I may not be. I'm going to be the 54, and it's my third year, so I'm not cutting for the practice squad. I'm just going to go on waivers, basically. Speaking
Good luck to you.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Speaking of 53-man roster, guys not going to make a cut. Paul, last Thursday was our second preseason game. Sam Darnold did not light it up like Christmas, and Teddy Bridgewater apparently is our starting quarterback, according to every lunatic on Twitter. So I'll open with you, Paul. Do you think the Teddy over Sam Darnold debate right now is a legitimate case to be heard?
No, I don't. And I'm a Teddy Bridgewater guy, and early on in this process, I was saying Teddy Bridgewater to be the starter because that here, and I'll entertain it, and I'll humor that argument for a second. And the reason being, okay, in theory, Teddy Bridgewater is obviously much better, much more mobile than a 39-year-old Josh McCown. Sam Darnold can do the Aaron Rodgers treatment, and everything is hunky-dory. But here's the thing. I mean, you can name all the quarterbacks that have waited and then played, and you could also, on the other hand, name all the quarterbacks who have been thrown to the wolves and played. So for me, I think we're delaying the inevitable here. Now, through 2 preseason games, I think Teddy Bridgewater has been exceptional. I think Sam Darnold has been a hair less than exceptional. So I feel like it's close. And when we decided, weeks, months back, if the case is going to be close between Sam Darnold and the other two, Sam Darnold should win the tiebreaker. He's the rookie. The other guys are the veterans. They should be well ahead. And so far, to me anyway, it's been incredibly close. The Jets, I think they should wait for the right offer as it pertains to Teddy Bridgewater in this quarterback competition. I believe, because we're going to go in a lot of different layers here. First off, Sam Darnold should be the starter week 1. He can confirm that with I'm not looking for a superstar performance, to be honest with you. Friday night, Jets-Giants, MetLife Bowl. All I'm looking for is for Sam Darnold to continue. He has a 70-plus completion percentage in preseason. Sure, that's short to intermediate passes, but he's simply doing what the offense is providing, what is given by the defense. So I'm not going to shame Sam Darnold for not going deep on every play because he's taken what's in front of him. And let's be honest, I wish more Jets quarterbacks in history would have done that. So I think Sam Darnold is going to be the week 1 starter. He's probably going to play the first half from everything that I've been hearing. Teddy Bridgewater the second half. Josh McCown is likely not to play. So Sam Darnold is your starter. Teddy Bridgewater is the guy you have to figure out. And, we've been hearing trade speculation, but the Jets should wait for the right offer. I would not give up Teddy Bridgewater for a half-eaten Snickers bar. Quarterbacks are too valuable.
Is that what we're calling Dante Fowler, a half-eaten Snickers bar?
That's what I've heard, because here's the thing. From what I've talked to my Jaguar source, and he says that the Jaguars at this point are not interested in Teddy Bridgewater, not because they don't think Teddy's good, but they believe in Blake Bortles for better or for worse. So if the Jets are going to get in that Dante Fowler territory, it seems like it would have to be at this point for a premium pick. And premium is somewhere in that first 4 rounds. And that's something they would have to give up. Maybe conditional status. Maybe they can protect themselves a little bit. But at this point, the Jaguars are not interested in Teddy. And it would behoove the Jets if somehow they can include him in that territory, because you might as well maximize the value of a guy who's on a 1-year deal as opposed to continuing giving up future draft compensation.
Yeah, I agree. And I think premium picks right now are something the Jets desperately need to recoup and not give away, hence the Teddy Bridgewater value. So that we'll talk more about that in pass rushers, because there's definitely some pass rushers we need to talk about tonight on the roster and off the roster. But let's continue on with the offense. Like you said, Teddy Bridgewater was exceptional. Sam Darnold was a hair below it. Offensive line was a big part of the quarterbacks being a hair below it. Are you concerned about the depth right now?
I've been concerned about the depth for the last decade, if I'm going to be blunt. The Jets haven't used a first-round pick on an offensive lineman since DeBrickshaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold back in 2006. So if we're going to be even more blunt, so I'm saying that we saw the entire career span of 2 guys that are going into the Jets Ring of Honor before the Jets have invested another first-round pick into an offensive lineman. Yikes. The Jets have obviously not invested primo picks in the offensive line, i.e., the offensive line is at the current state it is. Look at the roster. I mean, outside of Brandon Shell, which is the only offensive lineman that Mike McCagnon has drafted during his tenure, this is a bunch of hired mercenaries. Now, Spencer Long is an upgrade over Wesley Johnson, who you could confuse with a hobo on a side alley. So, Spencer Long is better, though he's got some durability issues that we've seen in the past. Kelvin Beachum is just okay, but that's fine. There's no problem with being
friend of the podcast, Kelvin Beachum.
Yeah, and he's been on my Jet Zone several times. I love him, and he's been on my radio show. I love Kelvin, and I think he's average.
Friend of the radio.
But average is more than good enough for me. And then you have the 2 guards in Carpenter and Winters, and I think a big problem last week was 2 of those starters were out, obviously, with Beachum out and Winters out. But Beachum and Winters were practicing this week. So it leads you to believe that both of those guys are going to be ready by week 1. I talked to Eric Allen, Jets team reporter, earlier today, and that was the message he gave to me, that both of those guys look like they'll be ready for week 1. So concerned with depth, to answer the question, 100%. But I don't believe we're going to be able to fix that problem this year regardless.
So with the depth being an issue, what do you see the ceiling of this line being? If let's hypothetically say everyone stays healthy, what do you see being the ceiling for this O-line with Darnold under center?
An average offensive line, if I'm going to answer the question, it's a ceiling. And here's also the thing, like some people are like, oh, wait, Sam Darnold is this fragile piece of china in our living room. Let's not put him behind this offensive line or he's going to break. Well, you can't protect him forever. I mean, look at Josh McCown last year. He played behind the same offensive line except with a worse center, which I just mentioned, in Wesley Johnson, and he lasted 13, 14 games. So, what's the difference in putting Darnold back there, who's even more mobile than McCown is? So, for me, I think the offensive line, its ceiling is average, which doesn't sound great on paper, but this is an offensive line that can do enough to get the job done. Obviously, I think there's some things they can do. I've been on the Jason Peters to the Jets bandwagon. He's got 2 years left on his deal, a little over $20 million, former Pro Bowl offensive tackle. The Eagles won the Super Bowl without him last year because he dealt with another injury. So injuries are obviously a concern, but he could be a stopgap and help the Jets figure out their problems. And you could move Kelvin Beachum somewhere else on the offensive line and play little musical chairs. I mean, it's not something they haven't done in the past.
Right. You mentioned the perception of Darnold, and it's mainly because of fans and some analysts being, you can't throw this guy because of the O-line problems, blah, 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 blah. But another criticism of, I guess you could say, some fans and analysts is that he has no weapons, which I think is just blatantly untrue. I think he's got a good set of weapons that we just haven't seen in the preseason. What are your thoughts on the media and some boneheaded fans thinking that guys like Robbie Anderson, Quincy Enunwa, Jermaine Kearse, and Terrell Pryor, if he's healthy, are not good enough weapons for a rookie QB?
I think it's lazy, to be honest with you. That would be my analysis. And the guy I would point out is one I know who's made fun of it, is former Packers wide receiver Greg Jennings. I feel like it's a lazy analysis to go on The Herd with Colin Cowherd, or it was the Doug Gottlieb show, whichever, and going on the show and say, I don't know who these guys are. Well, you don't know who they are because you're a lackluster analyst, not because you know anything about football. So for me, are there any number ones on this team? No. But I wrote an article for EliteSportsNewYork.com a couple months ago that Sam Darnold can thrive in what I call the island of misfit toys. Now, when you look at this, Robbie Anderson's undrafted, Jermaine Kearse was undrafted, and he was acquired as a throw-in in the trade. Quincy Enunwa was a sixth-round pick. When you start looking around the room here, Terrell Pryor was a converted quarterback to wide receiver and a supplemental pick. You look around the room at some of these pieces that are in the mix for the Jets, none of them are from the great apple tree. They're pieces of garbage that the Jets just kind of picked up and they've kind of shined and have made them into NFL caliber products here. So I think the media that has scrutinized this, like as an example Greg Jennings and some of the fans from outside of the circle, just don't understand what they have. They don't recognize the names, so i.e. they suck. And I feel like, again, that's a lazy analysis. And we can go through them. We all know it. But Robbie Anderson, I think, is a true speedster. He proved a lot to me last year. Heading into the season, I had great questions about his ability to get off the line of scrimmage. And during the season, I said, hey, if people aren't going to press him at the line, then he's going to do exceptional. And he was 2 McCown games away from being a 1,000-yard receiver for the Jets. So I believe he really improved in that area. He showed he can run the full route tree, which I really like. So that's fantastic. Jermaine Kearse, to me, is reliable. For a shoo-in in the trade, it's pretty good that you got a guy who had a career year in receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Pretty solid. So he's a guy that I really like, and he is the true veteran receiver on this team, which can really help Sam Darnold out. People forget how good Quincy Enunwa is. Now, he's a bit of a tweener. People were saying maybe he could be an H-back, but to me, he's a wide receiver. Sure, you can put him as a tight end, H-back, all these different things. But what he is to me is a football player. And he's a guy that I think is going to step up to the plate in a major way. Now, the big question is, and I know you didn't ask this, but since we're talking about the wide receiver core, Mike Maccagnan, is he going to keep his draft picks or is he going to take the guys that are playing better? The 2 guys in particular, Trey McBride and Charles Johnson. Those guys have been playing very well in the preseason. Then you have his draft picks, Chad Hansen or Darius Stewart. He obviously has vested interest in his draft picks. But is he going to pick the better guy or is he going to pick the draft pick? I certainly hope he makes the right decision.
Okay, let's talk about that decision because that was actually going to be the next question. Quite the mind you got on yourself, Paul, just reading me like a book. I wonder how the listeners feel about that then. They're probably just predicting the questions by now. But the wide receiver depth chart, like you were saying, going over right now, is probably one of the deepest on the entire roster, which isn't saying a lot. But obviously there are, I think, the core 4 in my mind, Robbie, Quincy, Jermaine Kearse, and Terrell Pryor, who I think will definitely make the team. And then there are the picks of Ardarius Stewart and Chad Hansen, who have done almost nothing in their careers and have shown almost nothing. Ardarius Stewart continues to show that he's not capable of blocking or running a route, and Chad Hansen can't seem to get on the field but makes a bunch of plays in practice. And then we need a kick returner in Andre Roberts, and then there's special teams players like Jerome Peak, who continue to excel and was dearly missed last year on special teams, but do not fit in on this roster when it comes to their natural position of wide receiver. So, Paul, what are your predictions for who's going to be on this roster given the dilemma? Because there's a lot of guys, and even a guy like Trey McBride, who's produced a lot in training camp and currently in the games, who, by the looks of it, deserves to be on this roster. So what are your predictions for this?
Well, here's the thing. Normally NFL teams will keep somewhere between, 6 at most 7 wide receivers on the team, and that 7th could potentially be a return man like a Lucky Whitehead, someone of that venture. But you mentioned it there, so let's just break out the numbers. So Robbie's obviously making the team. Robbie, Quincy, Jermaine Kearse, and I'm missing one off the top of my head, but those are some of the receivers that are automatically making the team. It's not even a question. Then you start getting to the funky territory. I believe, honestly, Mike Maccagnan will make the right decision, and he'll take the guys who are playing better as opposed to the draft picks. So we mentioned the 2 draft picks in Chad Hansen and Ardarius Stewart. The interesting thing was that Chad Hansen in the spring was apparently lighting it up. We're like, wow, California kid to California kid, that's going to be a great connection for Sam Darnold. And I brought on Rich Samini on my show, Manish Mehta, all the big guys. And I'm like, so is this Chad Hansen hype real? They're like, yeah, he's looking really good. And now we're seeing him like, yikes, he can't even get any PT in the game. So for me, I don't think Chad Hansen's going to make it. Ardarius Stewart, we also have the suspension to deal with as well, and he's not good enough to be suspended and be like, oh, wow, we got to keep him, even though that does provide a little bit of roster flexibility because you could kind of keep him and he won't count against the team during the suspension. So that's a possible factor. But I think Trey McBride ultimately will make this team. I think Terrell Pryor will make this team more so, and I know we haven't seen a lot from him, obviously, because of the injuries, but he's a different kind of receiver. The Jets don't have one of those kinds of receivers on the team that could be either a vertical threat, like Robbie is a vertical threat, but like a red zone guy, a situational football. So I think Terrell Pryor, based on that capability, and we've seen some things in practice, I believe he ultimately makes a team. So Trey McBride, Charles Johnson, who's been kind of a cast-off, he's bounced around the league, he's another guy that I anticipate making this team. So there's a lot of intrigue there. And then if, Jets obviously haven't had a return man, Jeremy Curley was captain fair catch. You've had
nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with almost like a negative average for return yards. But we haven't really had since Mike Westall. So I imagine a Lucky Whitehead or something like that making the team. Trenton Cannon would have been the return man, but all the fumbling issues, we'll see if he can correct that in the final 2 preseason games. But that's how it's going to kind of shake out. I envision probably 6-7 receivers for the Jets. Again, no more than 7. And you go with a couple of mainstays that are automatic locks on the roster. It leaves only a couple of spots available. And unless Chad Hansen or Ardarius Stewart do something crazy here in the 3rd preseason game, and, the 4th preseason game, the Jets basically know what their roster is heading into that because that's Thursday, August 30th, and they have to make their decision by Saturday morning heading into the new season with the new CBA rule of no 90 to 75 to 53 cuts. It's just 90 to 53. They usually have most of their decisions made at that point, so they're going to really have to prove something on Friday night.
Let's talk about the other weapons, whoever the starting quarterback, Sam Darnold, is going to have to work with. Tight end, big question mark right now. All the beat writers we've had on said that this is going to be a very close call on who gets cut. We have veterans like Eric Tomlinson and Clive Walford who are relatively proven in the NFL and have a serviceable job. Obviously, the rookie and Chris Herndon, who the Jets are going to keep. And then there are other guys straggling around who have been making plays throughout camp. What are your predictions for this? Because, personally, I think a guy like Tomlinson, it's hard to replace as a blocker, but at the same time, he doesn't offer much in the passing game. So, who's going to be on the chopping block here? How many do you think we're going to keep?
This is the big question. It seems like everyone's kind of assumed 3. And when I spoke to EA earlier today, he says, hey, man, I wouldn't even say, I would say it could be even more than 3, which is surprising because you're like, well, 4 tight ends, Jesus, what are you going to be doing with all these guys? But there's a couple of guys that are almost automatic. Like Chris Herndon is automatically on this team, obviously, and he's looked really good as it pertains to, we haven't seen him much in game action, but what we've seen in terms of practice and training camp, I really like what I've seen from Chris Herndon. I think he can be an impact guy. And that goes to show what the Jets have been able to do with this draft class. Because when was the last time the Jets had a deep draft class that could have multiple hits? If you start looking at the Jets draft history, it's been a long time. So this could be a real opportunity. I think Herndon makes the team. Walford has been very interesting as a guy who's been around for a couple of years. But Leggett, the other draft pick, he's going to play on Friday night from everything I've been told. So this is his real first opportunity to show something and perhaps his last opportunity. If he doesn't show anything, I don't care what his specs are. I don't care what we think he could be and what he was supposed to be out of Clemson. If the best ability you can have is availability, and Leggett has had no availability because he's been injured. So for me, it's a huge day Friday for Jordan Leggett. But who's going to stay? I think it's 3, but EA kind of tried to kind of give me a hint, but not give me a hint on what he thinks he knows about the team, and he's the team reporter, so I give him a lot of credit. But I think it'll probably be 3. I could see 4 if they want to do roster flexibility. I see Herndon making the team. Eric Tomlinson is a guy who has really impressed the coaching staff, not only as a blocker, but a surprise, kind of a guy who can do a little play action and be available in the passing game as well. Neil Sterling is a guy who's got a lot of speed, and he's another guy that intrigues me greatly. So give me Herndon, give me Tomlinson, give me Sterling, and then if I had to go with kind of a wild card, I'd go with Walford just based on how he's played here with the Jets. But the number will probably be 3, but I'll play to what EA told me earlier, and I'll give you 4.
Before we hop over to the defense, can we just take a moment to reflect how before training camp and all this started, it was like a Hackenberg light kind of situation where there was just a contingency of fans that were like all in on Jordan Leggett being this next great tight end for the Jets, and I had no clue where that came from.
Well, I can understand where it comes from when you look at the specs, because it's kind of the same thing people said, I guess, about Hackenberg, but in a different way. Like Leggett, 6'5", 250 pounds, from a Clemson team that won the national championship. Now, I could see why you would say, wow, look at this guy. But look at the rest of the tight ends. Chris Herndon, 6'4", 250. Clive Walford is 6'4", 250. Eric Tomlinson is 6'6", 260, and Neil Sterling is 6'4", 257 pounds. That's how these guys come out of the womb, which must be painful for the mother. But for this, from a standpoint of just looking at Leggett, you're like, wow, look at the size. But look at the rest of the tight ends on the roster. All of them are that big. So I feel like that's kind of where fans get lost, and I don't think they understand how truly big and the specs that some of these guys have.
Right. Should not be lost. Jet fans are a pretty irrational bunch, too, going after a guy who has played 0 downs of football.
Jet fans are irrational?
Are you both sitting down?
No, I'm on my knees, but kind of.
Paul, are you sitting down?
I am.
Jets fans are an irrational bunch. I didn't want to break it out on the podcast.
Wow.
I know. I'm sorry,
we just
guys.
lost listeners. 3-star reviews are coming in.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't know I felt like I was in a good spot to say something like that.
But also, let me bring up this point kind of on Jets fans like clinging to dear life on Jordan Leggett. It also goes to the draft pick. So let's be honest, to my point I just made a few minutes ago, the Jets have not had a draft where they've hit on multiple guys. Like, okay, you hit on the first round with Jamal Adams. Okay, you hit on the first round with Leonard Williams. Okay, you were supposed to hit on that. What about in the middle, late round? Where's a guy who steps up for the Falcons? Deion Jones in the second round. Now he ends up being a beast, and now he's like a key cog in the machine. Where is that for the Jets? Hopefully Marcus May is that, but, really, we haven't seen that over the last couple of years. So I think fans are clinging to that. Christian Hackenberg, a second-round pick. Second-round picks are supposed to be starters on your team, or at the very least some sort of role player. Christian Hackenberg never played a down. That's hard for Jets fans to swallow. And same thing with –
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just have to throw in everybody who listens to the podcast. I know you haven't listened to the show before, and that's okay. I'll give you a pass. Everybody knows I hate Christian Hackenberg with passion, not just as a football player, but as a person. I just hate his demeanor. I think it was the 3rd episode because we started around that draft. I cried when we picked him. I literally cried. Maybe 14 or 15. I think I may have been 15 because it was on my birthday that year. 15-year-old Kyle cried when we picked Christian Hackenberg because I hated him so much. And I've never had more joy in my life than watching John Gruden cut him. Couldn't even make the roster on the Raiders. Couldn't beat out E.J. Manuel and Connor Cook. The greatest day of my life. I'll have children one day. That's the greatest day of my life.
You know, it's I know a lot of people were not Hackenberg fans, and I understand that. Some people were in love with the freshman year at Penn State with Bill O'Brien, and I could get where people were coming from there. And as a Jets fan, what I try to do at first, before I'm critical, when they make a pick, I'm trying to okay, before I overreact to this, let me try to understand what their thought process is. And if they believe he's the guy, okay, great, let's give it a chance. But soon after, you kind of realized, wait a second, something doesn't seem right here. This doesn't, the feeling of Sam Darnold, and I get he was the third overall pick, Hackenberg was in the second round, but the feeling of what Sam Darnold seems to be bringing to this franchise, and he hasn't even played it down yet, to what Hackenberg was bringing, it's just this sense of, wow, we're trying to make crap up why Hackenberg's good. Oh, he pegged a reporter with a football. Well, that's okay. You know what? We all want to peg a reporter with a football. Like with Sam Darnold, he looks great. We're not trying to rationalize why he's great. It just is what it is, and I feel like that's the difference.
So let's flip over to the defense. I feel like we've done enough of talking about that quarterback from Penn State. The cornerback depth chart at the top is pretty much set. You got Tremaine Johnson, you've got Morris Claiborne, and you've got Buster Skrine. Derek Jones has made a lot of buzz in preseason and in camp. Rashard Robinson last week have a little bit of a Kyle Wilson-esque performance, but played pretty well besides that. How do you see this cornerback depth chart breaking for week 1?
Sure, and let's get into it. So there's a lot of corners on this team that we have to dig through, but I'll start off with here. Guys that have kind of impressed me that I think are making the team. Perry Nickerson, super productive player, 6th-round pick out of Tulane, feisty guy. I love his competitiveness. I love what everyone's been telling me about how he's looked, and also I know there's been some injuries there. Perry Nickerson, I think, is making this team. Tremaine, obviously, with the second highest contract in NFL history for a corner, is making this team. He was back this week after some injuries, so that was a huge sense of relief for the Jets. Outside of Sam Darnold, Tremaine Johnson is the biggest piece for this team in terms of what they're going to do. They're paying him to be Revis 1.0, and we'll see if he's able to make them pay for the money that he's giving. Darryl Roberts is a feisty little corner as well that kind of intrigues me at 6 foot, 180 pounds, but I'm not sure if he ends up making the team. Rashard Robinson is the one I think Jet fans are having, trouble sleeping over because of the fact the Jets gave up that future draft compensation, which we talked about earlier, to acquire his services. And then he has the pot issues, and then also in the Redskins game, he was kind of the reason
Talk about that
Jets.
On how dumb. I'm sorry to cut you off again, Paul. That's kind of what we do here on the Jet Take. But can we talk about how dumb Rashard Robinson is? He got caught with edibles in his car. Edibles.
Yeah.
Eat them. Eat them.
To go on a rant here, the pot thing in general, I don't get. Now, not that I don't get pot. I get why people smoke it. But the thing I don't get is when you know these drug tests are coming and you still fail it anyway. I mean, what we called is the dumb test, because if people fail that, like Randy Gregory, how do you fail the drug test at the Combine? You were invited to the Combine that has drug tests. I don't understand. That to me is the dumbest thing in history. I just can't wrap my mind around these idiots. But anywho, I get on a whole rant there. But Rashard Robinson, I don't think ends up making the team. Morris Claiborne, this guy I love. I'm glad he came back. And Connor Rogers, I agree with his sentiment. He told me last year on my podcast that when Morris Claiborne's healthy, he's a top 10 corner in this league. And to have that kind of potential, an LSU Tiger on that back end, I think it's terrific at one of the corner spots. Buster Skrine, let's talk about it. Now, I know he's a polarizing player. People don't like him because of all the extra penalties. But last year, outside of the penalties, he was a competent player. And this year, the only criticism I have is from the Jets coaching staff that they keep putting important players on special teams in preseason, like Buster Skrine, Jamal Adams. I really don't understand why we keep doing that. I think that's silly and it's asking for injury. I mean, we have 90 guys on the roster. We can't put one of them in instead of Jamal Adams or Buster Skrine, but I digress. Buster Screen is going to be our slot corner this year. When Jets drafted Perry Nickerson, they thought, oh, see ya, Buster, but now we just have depth, and I think that's something that's important. You mentioned Derek Jones as well as a guy, and Jeremy Clark is another guy. I talked to EA earlier. Derek, as he calls him, Bones Jones, is a guy who's a former
friend of the
wide
podcast.
receiver. Yeah, and he's a good friend of the podcast. I like that you're developing all these good friends. He's a lanky guy, 6'2", 188. I really like what he brings to the table. And these are the guys the Jets took chances on late in the draft where they're starting to make some noise. Like, people thought, oh, the Jets just kind of threw some of these picks down the crapper. But it looks like the developmental stages of this secondary, got to give a lot of credit to Denard Wilson, their cornerback coach, who was also one of the main reasons Jermaine Johnson even chose the Jets. So I believe, again, kind of similar to wide receiver, I imagine, 6-7 corners, somewhere in that ballpark. You can never have enough good ones. So if we're going to go through the numbers and try to pick them, Perry Nickerson's making this team. Jermaine Johnson's obviously making this team. Morris Claiborne, Buster Screen, Derek Jones, and then give me, Justin Burris, I guess. And maybe you can throw Jeremy as well. But this is a very competitive group, and this is a good thing. But the Jets are going to have the hardest decision they've ever had here at the roster cuts with Todd Bowles, and that's because the team is getting better, and that's a good thing.
That is a good thing. Unfortunately, Justin Burris, I had high hopes for him. Not the best football player in the world, so I don't know if I agree with that. I'd rather keep a guy like Jeremy Clark, who I had in my top 100 as a prospect coming out of Michigan, and then unfortunately the ACL tear that really limited and obviously made him fall into the 7th round.
Jeremy, 6'3", 220 pounds. I like the size and some of the things so that would be more so a developmental thing, which would be better than, I guess, Justin Burris based on the draft pick.
Yeah, and that's kind of my basis on that. We've seen what Justin Burris has, but, for right now, you can stash Jeremy Clark, on the practice squad. I doubt anybody's going to claim him. Well, maybe. You never know, but I think right now he can make the practice squad. We could probably get him, clear the waivers and settle down if you want to keep a guy like Burris who has, played NFL snaps for 2 years now. Let's talk about the other guys on the back end of the defense. The safeties, obviously, May and Adams are locks. There are starters. Hopefully at least one of them will be in a Pro Bowl this year, if not two. Let's talk about the people behind them because Doug Middleton, honestly, not impressing me, never really has. J.J. Wilcox, who we picked up in free agency later on in the offseason, has had an iffy camp and an even iffier, I guess, I know that's not a word, but iffier preseason so far. Rontez Miles, injured, key special teamer. Who do you think is going to be this third safety? Terrence Brooks, also in that discussion, also another good special teamer. I mean, there are guys who I think right now are limited in their roles but might work in Todd Bowles' system better. At the same time, there are guys who are less limited and better special teams player but won't be that great of a fit in Todd Bowles' defense. So where do you see, the safety depth going right now?
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, Marcus May and Jamal Adams are your starters, and Marcus May coming back from an ankle injury. He's itching to get back after it. We're hoping we could see him before the regular season, and that could start as early as Friday night. So just a note to keep on him. I've never been big on Doug Middleton either, to be honest with you. Excuse me. Rontez Miles, I've always been a huge fan of. There's some bias there I did a story on him a long time ago before he ever came to the Jets, so I have some bias there, and of course he's injured, and we'll see when he can return to the team. J.J. Wilcox, again, it's been kind of a middle-of-the-road camp because on some instances he's had days where he's had multiple interceptions in practice, but at the same time that hasn't always translated to preseason. Another name you haven't mentioned yet is Casey Rogers II, who obviously is the son of Casey Rogers the first on the coaching staff, so there's some bias there. Another guy, Brandon Bryant, who the Jets didn't end up using a supplemental draft pick on, but they were able to sign a, quote, priority free agent, for lack of a better term, after, and he's just a freak of nature. I mean, he's only 6 foot, 215 pounds, but all the numbers he put up at his mock combine were super impressive.
Very good.
And it goes to show you what kind of athletic freak you could have. Again, could you put him on the practice squad? Potentially, but there's a high chance that you could lose him to another team because apparently after the supplemental draft he had a lot of offers and he chose the Jets. So he would be a guy I would strongly consider having as one of those third safeties on the team. You could get a guy with a bit more veteran experience if you wanted to put somebody in there, and that would probably be my guy, J.J. Wilcox, who's been in the league for 5 years. So I know he's had kind of an uneven camp, but I would hope that because of his seasoning and being around the league, that he's a guy that, okay, maybe he's had a so-so camp, but this is a guy that I can trust in who's been around the league. So obviously Marcus May, obviously Jamal Adams. I think Brandon Bryant probably ends up making this team, and you're going to keep somewhere between 4 and 5 safeties, 4 at a minimum, 5 potentially, and that all depends, I guess. Are you able to trade Teddy Bridgewater? And I know that sounds crazy to make that comparison, but if you trade Teddy Bridgewater, you're only going to keep 2 quarterbacks, which leaves an open roster spot that you can play with somewhere on the team. If you're not, you have to keep him. His $5 million. I don't think it becomes fully guaranteed, but I think a part of it becomes guaranteed. So then with the Jets, you're going to have to try to figure out, okay, if you have 3 quarterbacks, what position group has just lost a spot? And that could be a big thing we're talking about leading into next Saturday when they have to make that decision. But again, Marcus May, Jamal Adams, give me J.J. Wilcox and Brandon Bryant, and then the potential, I guess, would probably be Casey Rogers II if they want to keep the young kid around.
All right, Paul, we're going to start winding this down a little bit. Last couple questions. Defensive line, not so much a question of depth because I think, this is just a rotational thing. But, the question is right now who's going to be the starter, on the other sides of Leonard Williams and Steve McClendon, who will be rotating in and out based on the defense. Canadian Thanos, he's closer up your way than he is my way. We're talking about Nathan Shepard, of course. Henry Anderson, an acquisition from the Colts, who it looks to be a promising young guy who just never really got off on the right foot in Indy. Well, he did get off on the right foot and then I think tore his groin. But what do you think the starters are going to look like right now? Because obviously we have the depth at defensive tackle and defensive end. It's just a matter of who the Jets feel the starters are.
Yeah, here's the thing. Nathan Shepard, I believe, from everything I've seen and talked to, Nathan Shepard is going to be your starter opposite of Leonard Williams. You did mention the defensive line rotation. That's definitely going to be a theme with Henry Anderson. And really, here's the thing with Henry. Sure, he tore his groin, which was obviously devastating, and his rehab from it has been great. But the thing is that they're transitioning from a 3-4 to a 4-3, which is basically riddled him useless to the Colts. So the Jets basically stole an ultra, uber-talented 3-4 defensive end that I think is going to be a huge help to the Jets. You normally don't get much of a pass rush from a 3-4 end, but I believe that Henry will be able to provide a little bit of that for the Jets. I think Shepard is your starter, and he's going to get a healthy rotation. You've got options here. Again, as long as we could see a bit more effort from this 96 as opposed to the one we had the last couple of years, I think the Jets are going to be in a pretty good position as it comes to Henry Anderson and Nathan Shepard. I think Shepard is your day one starter, but Anderson's going to get plenty of PT on the D-line.
All right, last question, at least the last official Jets question. Since we're on the topic of, pass rushers, obviously a lot of rumors floating around right now. Manish Mehta, friend of the podcast, he's dripping all the sauces right now, getting everything he can get, all the info. One day it's Dante Fowler, the next day it's Khalil Mack. I think either way, Jets fans are going to be pretty happy with what the outcome is. Right now, we're going to push you for your sources. What are you hearing? What is your opinion on this? Obviously, Khalil Mack, I think everybody would be incredibly happy with that addition. But what do you think it's going to take to get a player like that? And same goes with Dante Fowler.
Yes, I've reached out to both of my camps out there with the Raiders and also with the Jaguars. The Jaguars are potentially interested in moving Dante Fowler as a 24-year-old pass rusher. He's suspended for the first game of the season, and also he's had he has other warts. He tore his ACL and missed his entire rookie season. He's had some fights and issues that have sent him home from camp just as recently as this training camp and off season. So he's uber talented, and he's super young, and he's a primo guy who has 12 sacks in the last 2 years. So from that standpoint, he makes a lot of sense, certainly. From what I'm understanding, it seems like, again, the Jaguars are not interested in a Teddy Bridgewater deal right now, so it would have to be a conditional 4th or 5th round pick The Jaguars are not interested in that package at this current moment, and they're not particularly in the mood to get rid of edge rush, even though they have plenty of it at this point. So I think once we get closer to next week, there's been no formal offer made by the Jets, whether that's the Raiders situation or the Jaguars situation. I anticipate that to be able to consummate. Basically, they have a couple of options here with Dante Fowler. They can make that happen if they'd like as early as next week, right around the cut day. That's where it's going to be a wild, wild west, which we need to understand. I'll answer both of these questions, but also expanding it. That's where things are going to get crazy because, I mean, it is the bloodbath of the NFL. It's a necessary evil. 32 teams are going from 90 to 53 by Saturday. I mean, that means, like 40 guys, and I'm, averaging out the numbers here, are going to lose their jobs per team. So that means there's going to be a lot of movement. Whatever the, quote, final roster is will not be the final roster because teams are going to continue to do their homework. That's also the case via trade. So if the Dante Fowler deal is going to happen, I anticipate that happening right by game week, which would start officially that Monday. So that's something to keep an eye on. The Jets are very much in the mix for Dante Fowler. And as it pertains to Khalil Mack, as soon as I saw the story from our guy Manish Mehta, I reached out to my Raider sources, and they confirmed everything that Manish was saying. The Jets are among 12, 13, 14 other teams. There's only 32 teams in this league that have inquired whether it's just a lukewarm call to a, wow, please, can you trade us him right now? So both standpoints, there's been teams all over the board from A to Z that have inquired about Khalil Mack. Khalil Mack at this point is not going to be moved right now, so Jet fans are going to have to temper expectations. But the fact that the Jets are making these calls, to me means this. It means that the Jets are not content with, hey, let's just see what happens in 2018 and 2019. Ooh, baby, with $100 million in cap space and a year under Sam Darnold, that's when we're competing. The Jets are not being complacent here, and I think Jet fans have to appreciate that. And aggressiveness from this front office to say, all right, we sucked last year, okay? Everyone knew that we were going to be bad. We weren't 0-16 bad, but we ended up being 5-11. This year we're going to push the pedal to the metal, chips in the middle of the table, and let's find a way to do this thing. And you got to respect that as a Jets fan. So the Khalil Mack deal, in terms of the potential package, the conversation starts with a first-round pick. And really, it probably ends with another first or a first and a third, fourth. So it's going to be somewhere in there, and then maybe another player, mid-level starter in my mind, like Darren Lee, I guess, is an example just to throw out there. But you'd have to see whether the Raiders. Podcast. Yeah, right. Yeah, I love Darren Lee, man. So I hope that he's able to take the next step in the development, and then you don't need to do that. But it'd probably be a mid-level starter, but I don't know where that comes from, whether the Raiders are interested in more wide receivers. They already have Jordy Nelson, Amari Cooper, Martavis Bryant. So they got a lot of options out there. So that it would be great to sell off a surplus, but the Jets don't want to lose anything too great, so you may have to stick with picks. But that conversation is going to be a first and third a starting conversation. But, the Jets need an edge rush. I mean, there's no question. The last edge rusher the Jets have had that opponents have feared was John Abraham, and that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Paul, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, the mayor of Syracuse, regardless of the payroll. Go ahead and shout out all your social medias, the Twitters, the Instagram, whatever the kids are on these days.
Yeah, that's true. I make it easy for everybody. My social media handle is the same for everything. @BoyGreen25, boy, and then green to color, and then 25, my jersey number back in high school, where I think they're still working on the statue out there. But I'll have to look. BoyGreen25, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. That's my professional page on Facebook as well. So, yeah, all you have to do is search that handle, like, follow, and the family.
Paul, thank you so much for coming on. Last question, though. We have to ask everybody on here. I've interrupted you multiple times throughout the podcast to say it. Will you officially be a friend of the podcast?
You can add me to the collection, boys. I'd love
to go.
Okay, what size is your shirt? Not to put you on the spot.
Medium. I'm a schmedium.
Okay, well we'll send you one of those. And
love it.
You'll give me your address. Give me your address when I come on your show, right? That's what we're gonna do.
Do not give Kyle your address.
Yeah. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. You've been fantastic.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks,
All right. And that was Paul Esden. You can follow him, as he said, BoyGreen25 on basically everything. Greg, you were silent for the past 5 minutes. You got a frog in your throat?
Yeah, man. This is bad time to get sick.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I can even get these sentences out without just coughing up a lung. Noted non-smoker though, so that's always good.
No, you just dip instead. You're gonna get what is it? Lip cancer? Gum cancer?
Gum cancer.
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta take the good with the bad. I can still run. So.
What's the good?
All right, so let's get into the next segment of the show.
All right. Obviously, a lot of the topics we just ran through with Paul, we're going to hit with the callers. Probably a couple callers tonight. Greg will just do me and you for right now because I do want to touch on a couple of things before we hit the callers. Let's talk about the possible Dante Fowler trade because I feel like that's the most realistic one out of the two. We will talk about Khalil Mack. I'll start because this is my show, and Greg, you don't belong here. I think that's only fair.
Wow.
Yeah, I said it. Yeah, you don't have the pedigree of the Jet Take.
All right. Well, it was nice talking to you guys. See you guys later.
Yeah, Greg's banished from the show now. A lot of people, and I got into a bit of a discussion, we'll call it a mini fight. Me and DA got... Yeah, I know, right? I'm the most unconfrontational person in the world. But me and DA, we got into a little Twitter argument over the value of Dante Fowler. I think he's a bust. I've never liked him, ever. I'm a Gators fan. You know, that's just a guy who was consistently, for lack of the better words, not a hard worker. He continues to show that he was not worth the number 3 pick. There were 3 Pro Bowlers picked directly after him in order, one of them being Leonard Williams. He is at best a 10 to 15 selection in that year's draft. Definitely not worth number 3. He has 12 sacks in 3 years. Granted, one of those was completely injured, so we'll say 12 sacks in 2 years, but last year it was 8 sacks compared to the 4 sacks from the year before, which is improvement. But you look at what else improved around him. Defensive Player of the Year, Calais Campbell, was on that defensive line probably around 85% of the time he was on there. They had a very strong rotation, obviously, in Jacksonville, a great defense, and I don't think his talent or his work ethic is the reason he doubled his sacks. I think him merely being the one guy they could let slip by was the reason that his sacks went up. I am not a huge fan of Dante Fowler. And I think if he comes to the Jets, he will probably get 5 or 6 sacks, and he will be a nice role player. I do not think that's worth a 4th-round pick in my eyes, and I'm not going to be incredibly happy like most Jets fans will be if we trade for Dante Fowler, especially if it involves a high pick or Teddy Bridgewater.
I mean, yeah, like Fowler fixes, I guess you could say fixes the edge rush problem if everything goes well. They obviously don't have the talent level that Jacksonville does on their D-line outside of Leonard Williams. And the way I went back and watched all of his sacks, and a lot of his sacks were just basically on stunts, which is easy to do when you have a guy like Malik Jackson and Ngakoue and Calais Campbell on that defensive line. He's good at containing the edge. He's just a freak athlete, and that doesn't always translate into a good football player, which we've seen in the first 2 years where he hasn't been injured. All right, let's not bring that name up. But yeah, I mean, like, does he fix the edge rush problem? You could say he does to an extent. The whole team issues, I think I wrote about this today on DOJ. I don't think it's definitely a small red flag. But for the culture change that's happened within the Jets organization, I don't think this would be enough to break that up. And I don't think they would make a move on a guy that would potentially disrupt what they have going now. So, yeah, I wouldn't be – if Teddy's involved, I mean, Paul said that, like, Bridgewater's really not on the table for the Jags, which is weird considering that they have a guy named Blake Bortles as their quarterback. But if Teddy's not involved, like, I'm not giving up more than like a 4th or a 5th round pick to get him. Like, I just don't see the value in that when he hasn't shown it on field. Yeah, the potential's high, but if you're giving up anything more than a 4th or 5th rounder, like, I want to see that. I want to see that translate onto the field. So.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, it might be a personal thing. I don't like Dante Fowler. I don't.
You have a lot of personal vendettas.
Well, he was such a disappointment at Florida in my eyes. He was a kid who was a freak athlete. I think he was a 4-star. You know, he was considered one of the better recruits in the nation. A lot of Florida fans hyped him up. I was like, okay, let's see it. He had, you know, a decent year of production, and then NFL scouts were like, oh, look at him. He's, what is he, 6'3", you know, 240, I think, off the top of my head, if I remember that. You know, he ran a solid 40. He is a freak athlete, like you said, but he never had the motor. He never had the drive, and you're seeing it in the NFL. He did not deserve to be the number 3 overall pick, and he does not deserve getting moved to a better, you know, situation for him financially in the future because the Jets will likely give him a contract. You know, he hasn't even I put it this way with DA when I was in the argument with him, and you guys can find this on Twitter. You know, DA was, you know, making the comparison that guys like Jadeveon Clowney and Leonard Williams necessarily haven't lived up to their pick. I think Leonard Williams has. I think Jadeveon Clowney also, he has lived up to be a top 5 pick. I wouldn't say he was worth the number 1 pick because, you know, he's injured a lot, and that's unfortunate. But Jadeveon Clowney was an All-Pro, and he has made 2 Pro Bowls. Leonard Williams has been an All-Pro and has made a Pro Bowl. Dante Fowler has 12 sacks, 40 tackles, and was the number 3 pick in the NFL. That doesn't cut it for me. He hasn't earned a second contract with his team. His team literally said, you know what, we don't want you after this year. We're not going to pick up the number 3 overall pick from 4 years ago. That is tough. That means your production isn't good enough. I don't want that on my team. You know, this is a guy who, off-the-field issues have been prevalent since college. Locker room issues are starting to boil over because he can't get along with his teammates, apparently. Him and Jalen Ramsey, you know, they can't cut Jalen Ramsey because he can back it up. He's a great player. That kid will be a Hall of Famer one day. Dante Fowler might not even make that roster from what we're hearing. Why do you think they're trying to trade him so much when they just have a year left? This isn't a coincidence, folks. Don't buy into this hype. I know Jets fans are desperate for an edge rusher, and any 25-year-old who's slightly athletic and is kind of cheap, Jets fans will die for right now. They're like 50-year-old men at a college campus, basically. You know, they're looking for something flashy. They're not going to be all too great every time, folks. Now, on the other hand, Khalil Mack. Once-in-a-lifetime generational pass rusher, the best defensive player in the game, deserves every dollar that he's going to get.
All right, let's not disrespect Aaron Donald here.
He's better than Aaron Donald.
That's incorrect, but that's a conversation for another day.
Aaron Donald is a fantastic, will be first ballot Hall of Famer, great defensive tackle, will have a fantastic career. Khalil Mack is just a better position for one, defensive end and then outside linebacker, who dominates the game at both positions, is an all-pro at both positions, and has been working with an team for a while. So is Aaron Donald. But, you know, I think Aaron Donald has had a little more talent around him. You know, they had Robert Quinn, they had Michael Brockers, they had Chris Long. Obviously, Aaron Donald is great and has performed without them, but I'm just saying, Khalil Mack, fantastic. That's just my opinion on him. That kid is the best football player, you know, defensive football player in the NFL. If we get him, I'm willing to give up a lot for him. I really am.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. And
great analysis.
I didn't mean to cut off the host here.
Yeah, thank you. Great. It was great analysis by me, just to leave it off on. We'll give up a lot for him. And I'm not even joking. I would give up a first for him and the contract.
Yeah.
Because the draft class next year, and Greg, I'll let you talk after I get this point out, is loaded with edge rushers, right? Joey Bosa, Ed Oliver, bunch of other guys coming out of the Big Ten, bunch of other guys coming out of the SEC. They're going to light it up at the Combine. You know, Nick Bosa will probably be even better than his brother, Joey Bosa, just because of the pure talent, and he's a little bit more athletic. Ed Oliver is a freak of nature down in Houston, and that kid will probably be a top 3 pick, and he deserves to be there. But Khalil Mack, that's a Hall of Famer. would you give up? The Jets are I'm going to say around the 18th pick. I think we'll have a relatively good year, and I'm assuming Sam Darnold's going to play all 16 games. Would you give up an 18th pick for a Hall of Famer in the prime of his career?
I would give up more than that.
And we're going to have to. There's probably going to be more picks in there.
I mean, the Jets, you don't have all this cap just to sit on it and wait and hope that your guy comes to get there. I mean, look at it this year. It was either stay at 6 and hopefully wait for your guy to get there, or go up and, make things happen and get Darnold. If you want Mack, and if he's actually on the trade block and the Raiders are actually going to listen to offers and maybe field some, then you give up the first to get him. And I've seen Jet fans on Twitter say, well, wait just to get Bosa, wait to get one of the guys out of Clemson, wait to get this guy, wait to get that guy. The difference is
about him.
Yeah, the difference is in the draft, you're basically taking a lottery ticket. Like, Bosa projects well, and we all think, or a majority of us think, he's going to be a phenomenal pro, but there's always that if. Mack is in his prime, if not just getting into his prime. The Jets are going to have a ton of cap space. Why not go with a known quantity and roll with that? And it puts your defense in a very good position with the young defense that they have, the young core with Adams and May and Leonard Williams, and then you add Mack to that. That takes a lot of pressure off the secondary. Why not go get a top 2 guy at his position right now and be able to pay him?
Yeah. We have all the money in the world to pay him. We can't pay him now. We could pay him a fair amount now because, once he gets traded, I don't think he'll hold out once he gets traded, because that would be dumb for him to get traded and piss the team off already, and then he won't get a contract. It'd be dumb, to say the least.
It'd be dumb. Yeah, it'd be dumb for a team without the cap space, without getting a commitment from him saying, I'll sign here long term. It would be dumb for a team to trade for him if that happened. And the Jets have Sam Darnold under a rookie contract. They have the only guy that they really have to pay next season, I'm pretty sure, is just Leonard Williams. And you have a ton of cap space.
Quincy, too.
Yeah,
right?
But I don't think Quincy's not gonna. Yeah. They both signed the. I forget what the actual name of it is. It's escaping me right now.
Quincy signed the tender, right? And then Leonard is last year of his rookie deal.
Yeah, but even then, you're still gonna have a ton of cap space, and you can go out. You can try to shore up that offensive line. Try to get some more weapons for Sam, but if you have Mack, that just opens up a whole new view of how the Jets go about their offseason. And having a guy committed and Mack, you have to make that deal if it's on the table. Now, obviously, I'm not saying you give up a king. You might give up a king's ransom for him, but you have to be smart about it. You don't want to just jump on the fact that, we haven't had an edge rusher in so long, let's give up anything and everything to get this guy. You have to be smart about it. You have to set your price point, and if it goes higher than that, maybe you do it, but if it goes too much higher than that, you guys say, no, we'll just wait on it, because you don't want to sacrifice the rest of the roster to get one player, no matter how good that player is.
Absolutely, I agree. Greg, can you name top 5 teams in the NFL right now, in your opinion? No
top
particular
5
order.
Teams in the NFL?
Yeah.
The Patriots.
Yeah.
The Eagles.
Yep.
I'd say the Rams.
Mm-hmm. Okay, stop there. You've made my point. Would you say that's the top 3 in your mind right now, or were you just naming top 5?
I mean, yeah, you can make. I mean, the top 2 I think are Eagles and Patriots, but then the 3 through 5, 3 through 6, there's a little wiggle room. But yeah, I mean, simply based off talent, the Rams. I would put the Rams at 3. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about those teams, right? The infrastructure of it. I agree. Patriots are the best team in the NFL. Jets fans, whether you like to admit it or not, they're the best team currently in NFL history when it comes to dynasties and stuff. Get over it. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Rob Gronkowski, they're great. It's whatever. That's a special team. The 2 teams behind it, Philadelphia Eagles, they won the Super Bowl last year. You want to know how they won the Super Bowl, Greg? And I know you know this, and I know probably most of the listeners know this. How they win the Super Bowl? They had a young quarterback who was on a rookie contract, who was uber talented and was given time to work through his problems in the first season. They worked through the problems in the first season, and you know what they did? They went and built a great offensive line. They went and built a great defensive line. They protected him, and they got at other quarterbacks, and they worked with homegrown talent at the cornerback position throughout that whole year And guess what? They beat Tom Brady. Look at the Jets right now, right? They have a young quarterback who's probably going to get a chance to work through all of his problems this year. A lot of analysts, including myself, have him up there with the likes of Jared Goff and Carson Wentz when it comes to talent. I don't think they're that far off, at least where they were in college. I think that's a fair statement. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, keep rolling. You're good.
Okay. So look at the Jets right now. We have some pieces on the offensive line. I think Kelvin Beachum is a solid left tackle. You can win a Super Bowl with that guy. I think Brandon Shell is a solid right tackle as far as it goes in the league. And I will say right now the league is pretty short on good tackles. So you can take what you get. The guards right now, we'll see how they'll play this year. And center, we just signed a guy. I don't know where he's. I don't know what the hell that noise was. But all right. There we go. I don't have the callers muted. That's a rookie mistake on my part. But I was like, what the hell is that? And they just ruined my rant. All right, we'll pick it back up. As I said, right now the offensive line, they have some pieces to work with, right? You can build around it. And we have a young quarterback and a hell of a lot of cap space next year. What do we have at the cornerback position? Guys like Morris Claiborne, guys like Buster Screen, guys like Perry Nickerson, and it's actually to Jermaine Johnson, pretty much homegrown talent. Morris Claiborne obviously picked pretty high in Dallas, but the kid didn't play a lot. We've picked him, as the diamond in the rough of our free agency class last year. We gave him a nice, pretty contract, and we said, you know what, get some time, get healthy, get back to what you were. Look at the wide receivers we have. Quincy Newell, Robbie Anderson, homegrown talent. Defensive line obviously has its pieces that we liked. Leonard Williams, I think, will be a Pro Bowler this year. I'm just expecting that out of him. He has the talent. There's a lot of similarities on this team. I think the biggest difference right now is coaching and linebacker play between the Jets and the Eagles, because the Eagles had a fantastic linebacking core, and Doug Peterson was ballsy enough to beat Bill Belichick in a coaching duel, which is something Todd Bowles really hasn't done yet, an exception to one game, and I would give that more to Chan Gailey than Todd Bowles. Then look at the Rams right now. They're a Super Bowl favorite. Jared Goff is on his rookie contract. They just paid a lot of money to Todd Gurley, who deservedly gets it, which is something the Jets don't have, but their weapons, they've traded for them, right? They've had guys switched in and out of there every year. Sammy Watkins, Brandon Cooks, Tavon Austin a couple years back. They've had a couple guys in there, in and out, who they've acquired. They had the basis on the defensive line of Aaron Darnold. They did have the corners of Tremaine Johnson and Janoris Jenkins a couple years back. They let both of them go. They resupply with Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib. They're using their cap space, and they're trusting their young quarterback to develop with a rebuilt offensive line. Last year, they went and signed 34-year-old Andrew Whitworth, who is a top 5 left tackle in the NFL. You know how many times a 34-year-old left tackle gets paid like 25-year-old money? It's rare. The Rams did it, and then they hired a great head coach in Sean McVay, who not only proved himself to be one of the better coaches in the NFL, but will be for the years continuing. We're starting to pick a pattern here, right? Good coaching, young quarterback, young core that you've assembled. I like what Mike McCagnon has done when it comes to the young core on offense and when it comes to defense. I like Avery Williamson. I like Robbie Anderson, et cetera, et cetera. We love Sam Darnold. Todd Bowles, young coach. We still don't know what he is, though. I'm saying right now the Jets have pieces of this blueprint to be very competitive very soon. I think the Jets are going to be a borderline playoff team this year, depending on how the offensive line plays and how Darren Lee plays this year. I think the Eagles had a phenomenal year last year when it comes to players they didn't expect to performing well. Their corners played out of their minds in the playoffs, and I will tell you right now, the Jets have way better corner talent than them. But it's just a matter of how they play and how players progress and how they take steps. The Jets are getting close to that. We have the biggest piece on offense, and we have the big piece on defense with Leonard Williams. The Jets are close. Just a matter of getting these guys and assembling, and we have the cap space. There's a blueprint to follow. It's not hard.
Right, and this season you want to root for wins, but moreover everything, you just want to see how these guys develop. You want to see Adams take that leap. You want to see May take that leap. You want to see if Darren Lee is a friend of the pod, can stick around for the long term.
Friend of the podcast. I love you, Greg.
And most importantly, Darnold. Like, if Darnold shows enough to where this team is ready to compete in 2019 and 2020, then yeah, like, this team is, the infrastructure of it is good. If it seems like it's going to take a little longer, then okay. They're still very young. But yeah, I agree. A lot of these teams are young. Like you said, though, the main difference is I don't know if Bowles is ballsy enough to coach like Peterson to win games like that. But if you have, hopefully you have the talent around or on the roster to where you're not in games enough where the coaching matters a ton. I mean, obviously, coaching is going to win you or lose your games. We've seen that with Bowles in the past. We've seen him, in Buffalo in Week 17 get coached around circles by Rex Ryan.
Oh, my God. EJ Manuel. Oh, man, that pissed me off.
Right. It shows up too much. But, yeah, I agree with you. The infrastructure is definitely there for this team to compete in 2019 and hopefully beyond. It just comes down to the development of their young players.
Yeah. The development of young players starts in the preseason and training camp. And what was today, the last day of training camp officially? Now we're going into regular. Okay, so last day of training camp. I think, for the most part, coaches know who's going to make this roster right now. We have this big game coming up, Game 3, against the New York football, little guys, I guess.
Which, by the way, if you are in the New Jersey area, you should come out to Willie McBride's in Hoboken for our TOJ watch party Friday night for Jets Giants. It'll be the boss man, Joe Caparoso, Connor Rogers, myself, and the Clay Man, big free agent addition to Turn on the Jets. This sickness is really killing me. Anyway, it'll be fun. Live pod. You can come talk to us about football. Drink some beer. They have really good specials on drinks and food. It'll be a really fun night. So Friday, Willie McBride's in Hoboken, and hope to see you all there.
I will not be joining. I know all you guys obviously want me there because I'm the life.
When I found out you weren't going, I almost didn't go.
Well, here are a couple of reasons I'm not going. One, I don't think my fake ID is going to work there. 2, I live in Florida. So, Willie McBride's is a little bit out of my way. And
championship players don't make excuses.
And 3, football is much better in the comfort of your house with your own bathroom and your own snacks and your own pillow to cry on after the game. Okay, let's talk about this game that we might have to cry over.
Let's do it.
I think Sam Darnold's going to get the start. I think we agree there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So then it comes down to who's going to play. Terrell Pryor and Quincy Newell, guys, we haven't seen this preseason. Both are healthy, though. I'm expecting them to be in this game.
No, yeah, I agree with that. It's a weird way to go about asking a question. I don't know if that was a question or if that was just. I don't know if you had another point to make after that.
Well, we're going for points here. I was kind of just making sure. I was seeing how dumb you are, really, because I think these are statements that you should easily answer. But
yeah, no, it'll be fun to actually see Q in action. I mean, the last time that we saw him in action was 2 years ago. So just to see him out on the field, and hopefully, I don't see a need to play him the entire first half. If he can, then yeah, sure, by all means do it. But I hope we get at least a couple drives of just the full Jets offense I'd like to see some 4 wide receiver sets with Robbie, Kirst, Quincy, and Pryor. It's all signs point to Beachum and Winter starting. Everything that I've seen from camp this week is that those guys have been practicing and they'll be good to go for Friday. I just want to see what it's like, at least just a taste, just a little dabble of what this Jets offense is going to look like moving forward throughout the season.
Yeah, hopefully, Kelvin Beachum, friend of the podcast, will also be starting. I don't really know, though. Do we know anything about that with his injury? He was in practice the other day.
Yeah, from what I've seen, they've been practicing all week. It looks like they're going to start. Who knows how much they'll actually play, but it looks like they're going to start. From what I've seen, the starters are going to play the first half, and then I assume this is usually how it goes. They come out to do one drive in the second half just to do that, like, out of the locker room kind of stuff, which I don't understand because I haven't played football. But that's what it looks like is going to happen.
Yeah, hopefully, we just get out of this game healthy and with a trophy.
Right.
It's always one of those games where, unfortunately, an injury happens. Mark Sanchez a couple years back.
Because Rex Ryan wanted to win a stupid preseason trophy, but that's besides the point.
Well, listen, I think competitiveness is something you want to install in the team whenever.
Dude.
No,
not even try to defend that.
I'm gonna defend this.
That's terrible.
Not very well, but I'm gonna defend it just for sake of argument. I miss Rex Ryan sometimes. I really do.
I miss the Fat Rex.
Yeah, Fat Rex is way better. All right, let's get to some callers. I think we've talked these people to death, basically.
Yeah. Do we even have any callers left?
We do. We do have a couple callers. We haven't bored them all. Ooh, this is a good one, Greg. You're in for a treat. This is the first time, long time. We got the one and only Hakeem, who we haven't heard from in maybe a whole year. Hakeem, how you doing?
Dream.
Yeah.
Hey guys. Hey, thanks for having me on. Yeah, I got out of work early today. So I just wanted to give you guys a call before I got to get into the car and drive off, man. How you guys doing?
We're doing good, man. We're talking some Jets football. We got a franchise quarterback, so we're doing good.
Doing better now that you're here, Hakeem.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. And I wanted to ask you guys a question right off the bat. If you guys, had to make a decision right now, who do you think would give which Jet player would give us the best chance of making the Pro Bowl roster next year? Who do you think it would be? If you could only tie your name to one player.
Who's going to make the Pro Bowl like this upcoming season?
Yeah.
Ooh. Greg, do you want to take a swing or do you want me to bat first?
I'll go first.
Overstepping.
I think it's
not even your pocket.
No, do you want to go first, Kyle?
No. I mean, you're already in the order. You can't be like the Mets and out of order.
All right. I'm going to say it. I think it's going to be Jamal Adams.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think he's a very popular player. I think he's going to take a big leap forward this season. I was going to say Robbie Anderson, but I've had this conversation with people. Wide receiver is just so stacked in the NFL now that he's going to have to put up a monstrous year to even get considered for that. So I think he's out just based on that. So if I had to tie my name to one player, I'm going to take Adams. I really think he takes a step this year. And, I mean, he's one of the most popular players. I mean, he's the most popular player on the Jets. So I feel like he would get enough votes going into it this year.
This is interesting. I think for me the obvious answer is Leonard Williams because I think he's the most talented guy on the roster.
He's my number two, yeah.
But you may have a point with Adams and popularity, especially with that new hit track coming out soon.
Yeah.
Wow, that joke really did not hit. Hakeem, what are your thoughts on it? This is your question. You must have something in mind.
Yeah, I got someone in mind, but I wanted to just agree kind of with your points. Jamal Adams, he basically promised us that he's going to make the Pro Bowl every year after this year. So, we got to make sure he lives up to that. And I do agree that, Leonard Williams is probably our best player that we have in terms of just talent. And I think he can definitely be a disruptive force for us, and I'm hoping for that. But my guy that I'm going to say, I think it's going to be Locke Edwards, man. I think he's going to make the jump.
Ooh, I like it.
I like where Hakeem's going here, the Loch Ness Monster.
Listen, I've been really impressed with him. Every year he's definitely gotten better. And he had some rookie struggles, but he stayed through it. He didn't give up on himself. And all I hear from other players is he's the hardest working guy on the team. So that's why they don't bring in any competition for him.
Well, hold on. Listen, how can you be the hardest working guy on the team when you only do leg day? All right, you can't be the hardest working guy on the team.
Listen, man, he takes his craft very seriously. He's in there every day, every morning. So that's something I know for sure, and that's something that all Jet teammates really, really definitely respect him. And I think he's going to make a jump, man, and I think maybe catch him in the Pro Bowl, hopefully.
I like where Hakeem's thinking here. Yeah, I like that.
Is it sad nobody picks somebody on offense?
No, I mean, Crowell and Powell, they're nice pieces. They're not Pro Bowl caliber people. And like I said, wide receiver is just so stacked. Do we think the Jets wide receivers are good? Yes. But going up against the likes of Odell Beckham, Antonio Brown, Nook Hopkins, Adam Thielen, just to name a few. Yeah. I just don't think they stack up against those type of guys.
Well, Andy Dalton made the Pro Bowl 2 years ago, so there's always hope for somebody to make the Pro Bowl.
Now, are we counting, is this Pro Bowl, it has to be making the Pro Bowl without an injury. Is that what we're talking about here?
No.
I don't count those, 6th, 8th string guys that, people back out and then they're a Pro Bowl. I don't really count those.
Oh, see, I disagree because I would never, win anything in sports if that never happened. You make the Pro Bowl. You make the Pro Bowl. I mean, you're the 1A to the best in the league. That's not bad. I think you deserve to be a Pro Bowler then. That's how I look at it. Hakeem, let's talk about.
1G.
Oh, you looking for that spot still?
All right,
that joke didn't hit. Well, maybe it did. Well, maybe it did hit. See what it is there? All right, let's talk about some of the position groups. Hakeem, I want to talk about the linebackers because that's something we haven't really talked about tonight. I don't know how much of the Redskins game you caught, but friend of the podcast, Darren Lee, did not do particularly well. Avery Williamson, on the other hand, looked pretty stout in the run game. So what are we thinking about here? Because Darren Lee, first-round pick, hasn't really lived up to the expectations. Sorry if you're listening, buddy. What are we going to do this year?
Yeah, I mean, Darren Lee did have a bad game. Definitely on that big screen pass where we blitzed them from the right side. Darren Lee was completely caught out of position. He was near the left tackle when the play was going completely to the right side. So I was really upset with that play. But, he's an extremely young player. This is his third year going to the league. This will be his biggest leadership role that he's had on our team. And he's got, a good partner in Avery Williamson that's a really stout run defender. So hopefully, Avery can take on the big lineman that come his way. But I think what we're going to see with Darren Lee is we're going to see some splash plays, some sacks, some pass deflection, hopefully an interception, hopefully a pick six, really. And then I think we're going to see some bad plays too. We're going to see him get gobbled up by offensive linemen. We're going to see him over-pursue some running lanes. So I think there's going to be some good, some extremely good with him, and there's also going to be some bad with him, but you're going to see growth. I think that each year he makes a little step. Remember that he hasn't played linebacker for quite a long time, so it's still roughly a new position, but this has got to be the year where he puts up. It's very, very important that he shows a tremendous growth this year, because if the Jets' defense is going to be any good, it's going to have to really be starting with him, and he can't have any mistakes in that middle. But I really like Avery Williamson. I think he's a dark horse for a Pro Bowl as well. He's a complete tackler. He doesn't miss a lot of tackles, and his pass coverage, I believe, is underrated, in my opinion. And he's just a good guy. So I'm really excited that the Jets were able to sign him for a good deal, and I'm really excited that he's going to be here for the next 4 years.
Let's talk about the depth, because a guy like Neville Hewitt made some plays in that game. Do you see anybody pushing Lee for that starting role soon?
The only person I see pushing him for snaps is going to be Kevin Pierre-Louis, and that'll only be in coverage. If Lee starts really having a tough time in coverage, where he's making constant mental mistakes and he's just getting lost out there, I can see Todd Bowles subbing him out for Kevin Pierre-Louis, primarily on passing downs. I like our depth at inside linebacker. I think we have a real solid core there. Like you said, with Hewitt, he's a big playmaker on special teams, and he gets after it. And I also like Kevin Minter. So I think there's going to be some tough cuts, but the good thing, or I guess the silver lining to Pierre-Louis's suspension, is that we get 1 week to hold on to all three of those backup linebackers until we have to make a decision for week 2.
Yeah. Greg, your opinion on that?
No, I think that the main thing with Lee, not to harp on it too much, but his decision-making needs to get quicker. Too many times you see him just reacting to plays, and by the time you do that, it's way too late. We saw that on the one Vernon Davis catch against him, where he just looked lost. But yeah, this is a huge year for Lee. Like Hakeem said, like he's got a lot more responsibility, and this is a make or break year for him. And do I think he's going to make the leap to stay on the roster long term? I hate to say it, friend of the pod, I don't think so. There's been nothing to show me that I think he's going to be here.
He might send the shirt back.
We'll just bleep this out. I mean, this is where your post-editing comes into.
Yeah, well, then we wouldn't be authentic. I want everything on the Jet Take to be authentic. Yeah.
Kyle, do you believe he's going to be a future piece for us, for long-term future? Do you believe Darren Lee is going to be here and starting for us?
For the future?
Yeah, like 3 years down the road, is he going to be our starting middle linebacker?
Why you put me in this, man? Why you do this to me?
Like I said, post-editing skills.
Well, no, I'll say I believe he will. I think slowly but surely he's going to develop into a quality linebacker. And once he gets, familiar with the nuances in pass coverage, I have high hopes for Darren Lee, and I'm a believer in him.
Okay, good. So I'll say, yeah, he'll be on the team in 3 years, and he will be our starting middle linebacker. Friend of the podcast, Darren Lee, will have a wonderful career with us. What else do we have to talk about? Maybe O-line depth, as a car beeps in the background. O-line depth, a bit of a concern. Brent Qualve and Jarvis Harrison.
Clearly not. What did you just call him?
Brent Qualve?
It's Brent Qualve. Get it right, host. Come on.
When he starts playing right, I'll get it right. If you guys recall, I recall Darren Lee, Deron Lee, until he came onto my podcast. I'm willing to hold this against people. Brent Qualve and Jarvis Harrison, not the best people in the world to fill in for our usual guys. So, Akeem, what do you think of the depth we have right now, and how concerned are you?
I'm extremely concerned, especially when we're going to be possibly playing our rookie quarterback behind them, or even Teddy Bridgewater, who's also, prone to getting hurt. But Quality has proved that he can be a spot starter, I think, over the years with us. But I prefer him to be more on the right side or playing guard. And as far as Jonathan Harrison, that was an extremely terrible sack that he gave up. But I like his versatility at center and guard. Honestly, guys, it's tough to find O-line depth anywhere in the league. Right now, teams are just starving for it. I feel like the Eagles are in, the best position with their O-line depth. But, I think we got to stay healthy on the O-line. If we have 2 major injuries on the O-line, our season could just turn into shambles. So I'm really concerned with our depth. But on a positive note, I think Brandon Shell is going to be a big-time player for us. And I've been watching him this preseason, and, man, he's been locking that right side down, especially in pass protection. If he gets his hands on the defender, he's locking him up. What do you guys think about Brandon Shell's development?
I mean, as you can recall, Hakeem, because you've been here for about 3 years now, I've always been a fan of Shell. Obviously, the pedigree's there, and, the 5th-round pick out of an SEC, club in South Carolina, that's something teams tend to, fans tend to overlook when it comes to quality of talent they're playing against. That's the guy who has practiced against Jadeveon Clowney and stuff. It's you train with the best, you sharpen knives with iron. I think that's the saying. I don't know. It's a biblical thing. Obviously, you guys can tell I don't read a lot of the Bible. But I love Brandon Shell,
Shame on you.
nonetheless. Well, I'm going to hell. Shalom.
I think it's iron with iron. Sharpen iron with iron.
Well,
that would be correct.
He's a knife, because Aaron Darnold, he practices against knives. So.
Got it.
Greg, your thoughts on Brandon Shell?
No, I like it. It was a good value get for the Jets. And the best thing you can have as an offensive lineman is to not hear your name a ton. And I thought he played very well last season, and we didn't hear his name a ton. And in the midst of having the revolving door of Wesley Johnson at center, I thought Shell played very well for the Jets. And I think the most interesting thing I'm ready to see with this offensive line this year is how they do just with the absence of Wesley Johnson and putting in Spencer Long. Because the offensive line took a huge hit last year by just having Wesley Johnson out there. If they played 4 offensive linemen, I'm sure they would have done a lot better than just having Wesley Johnson in there. So having Spencer Long at center and actually being an NFL caliber center, I think we're going to work wonders for this offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. I think Spencer Long, a addition that isn't huge in name and I don't think will be huge in play, but so much better than what we have. Jets fans will know there will be a big difference in the protection of the quarterback and the overall offensive line. Akeem, a couple questions before we have to let you go because we are getting close to closing time, as you know.
Actually, Kyle, I gotta actually take off, but thank you guys so much for having me.
Wow.
I love your
wow.
Traffic is going to get crazy unless I pull out right
just
now.
shut you out, Kyle.
No. I love Kyle, and I love Ben, and I love the show. And Greg, you're awesome, too, so I'm going to definitely listen to the show every week. But I'm going to catch you later, Kyle. All right, peace out, guys.
All right, thanks for coming on, Akeem. Wow. I can't say that wasn't the easiest outro I've ever orchestrated. I mean, it's usually like an awkward couple questions, and then they know they're leaving, and they're like, okay, thanks for having me on. Homie cut me off. I mean, that was like he one-night standed me right there. He didn't even text me.
That's ballsy. I have to respect that.
That's what we need in a coach right there.
Let's get Hakeem 2020 or 2019, 2020, whatever the.
Yeah.
I don't know. Whatever.
Is it 2020? All right, whatever. Greg, anything else you want to talk about before we skedaddle?
No, I think we covered all of our bases tonight, and I didn't cough as much as I thought I was going to.
Yeah,
but I guess we can end. I guess we can. I did take the dip out of my mouth, Kyle. I guess we can end. All right.
No, go ahead.
You just killed the point. No, I guess we can end on. It's the third preseason game. We're going to see a lot of the starters. Do not overreact, even though that we're going to see a whole half of the starters. A lot of it's still just these teams are not game planning for each other. It's just vanilla defenses, vanilla offenses. What I would like to see, though, if all of the starting five of the offensive linemen are there, I'd like to see the Jets open up the offense more with Darnold. But other than that, I'm just excited that we get to see a whole half of these guys.
No, I completely disagree. I want to go balls to walls. I want everything in the playbook thrown out. I don't care if there's tape or not on it. I want to beat the Giants so bad. This is why Kyle's
not an NFL coach.
No, I hate the Giants so much. They're up there with Christian Hackenberg. I hate them more than the Patriots. I hate Eli Manning. I hate Eli Manning so much. I hate Tom Coughlin. I hate Ben McAdoo. Who else do I hate? I love Snacks. So I'll give him that. I do love Odell. But I really hate Eli Manning. In fact, I hate all the Manning brothers, even the crippled one. I hate him too.
Jesus.
And Archie. Archie too.
All right, I think we need to end on that. That was just.
He's not crippled. He's not crippled anymore. He's like a very successful lawyer. He broke his neck in high school. Okay, there is a gap of time where I can make that joke, and we're at it. Well, we just lost listeners. All right, folks, we're going to leave you with the best chant in the NFL. Actually, give us prediction. Give us a prediction for the game.
Like score-wise?
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say it's 24-13 Jets.
All right, that's the exact score I was going to give. So I guess we're really original here at the Jet Take. All right, we'll leave you with the best chant.
I'll say 25-13.
Oh, well, how are you going to get that one, Greg?
You better tune in to find out.
Ooh.
We call it tease in the biz.
Oh, you're giving me a tease. All right, now we'll leave you with the best chant in the NFL. Until next time, go Jets. I really hate Tom Coughlin.